welcome to the latest episode of United Rugby Chumps. I'm here with my co-host Kirby. How are you doing, mate?
I'm alright, and you, Darragh? How's things up there in Ireland today?
Grand, sunny, but as soon as everybody is to go back to work and school, it's sunny, so you can't enjoy it fully. But we've had worse. How's it down in the Cape these days?
Well, right now everybody's buzzing. I mean, right now being 4 for 4 against the All Blacks, the fact that we beat the All Blacks twice, we 4 for 4 in the rugby championship, as they always say. Here in South Africa, when the Springboks win, the whole country wins, and everybody's in a good mood. So everybody's flying high right now.
And we have two very, very great games at the weekend to discuss here. We will first discuss the
Yeah.
Springboks and All Blacks game that Kirby just mentioned, and then we will get on to the insanity of the Los Pumas and Wallabies game in that evening clash in La Plata. So first of all, South Africa versus New Zealand. South Africa do the double over New Zealand, put themselves in a position where if they beat Argentina once, they have the title. A hectic game, maybe not as high scoring as the first. So I want to hear your thoughts on it, Kirby.
I mean, you know what? You don't really want high scoring all the time. You wanted something close, especially when it's two top quality teams like that. Uh, I mean, you saw that stat I put into our group the other day. Out of the last 4 games, between 60 and 80 minutes, right now the score between South Africa and New Zealand is 26-7. Yeah, and that's just the amount of points divided in those 4 games and everything. It's always close. It's always nail biting. It's what you expect from high quality. It's almost the same as the island games that we had here. It was never just a, you know, walk over from one side. It was a push until that final whistle, which is what you want to see at international test level rugby.
Certainly, I think New Zealand did improve in the area of fitness. They didn't seem to wilter out in that last 10, 15 minutes, but they couldn't bridge the gap. They couldn't get anywhere close to the Springbok line in the last 15, 20 minutes to threaten to score that try that could have won them the game. They had a few
Yeah.
times that they were near the line. They didn't mess up a few chances. Obviously, the one that they got unlucky, it caused a lot of kind of anger in New Zealand, was the Jasper Visa yellow card when he took out. I think it's stuck to my name now.
Yeah.
But he took out a support runner, and the New Zealand could have been over. But at the end of the day, South Africa had two yellow card periods. New Zealand didn't score a try in either of them.
I mean, just that yellow card, I thought that was a little bit silly, either from the ref or South African. As a South African supporter, I thought that was a bit harsh, giving him the card for it. As he was already running into and Perinara cut across. But you know what, the laws are the laws, and he unfortunately, whether it was a try, I don't think so. That's why I do think a yellow card in the end probably would have been which was the outcome, which was the best one. Um, I mean, an interesting stat as well from the game is the first time since 2018 that the All Blacks haven't been able to score a try in a match, and the last time that happened was, like I said, was 2018 against Ireland.
Yeah, in
So I
Dublin.
mean, that's going to be put a little bit of a sparkle into the debate between South Africa and Ireland at the moment.
Yeah, well, you saw, of course, a pretty proud Munsterman, Limerickman, Jerry Flannery drinking out of the Freedom Cup, the orchestra of that. So we'll take a bit of credit for that defensive effort at the weekend. But no, it was really. I mean, the first test, the Bach defense. I praised New Zealand's attack last week. They got outside them. They showed how to. There was just a shut door this weekend. They couldn't get outside them. They couldn't bash them through the middle. South Africa again. South Africa's attack wasn't at its probably phenomenal best, but they done enough. They scored two tries. Uh, first one from Khaleesi is just bash, bash. That South African going away, South Africa, they hit and they drive you over the line. And it was Khaleesi who ended up scoring the try by battering himself over the line.
No, I mean that try, that battering through. I mean that's almost the typical thing, as I say, bullying the team over the line, which South Africa is great for using their forwards. I mean, there then there was that Cheslin Colby throwing in, which is now throwing that whole debate of who is actually the greatest player of all time. I mean, Justin Marshall and a couple other guys from one of the other podcasts were saying that pushes him way past DuPont, which as a South African, I'm like, yes, that's definitely the case. Um, but I mean, the the style of that game as well wasn't just your typical here we go. It was South Africa like throwing in a bit of spice here and there into the game, which did probably affect the All Blacks in their whole defensive thing. I mean, like that line out from Colby throwing it in. Now, instead of having a backline player in your line out line, you now have a full forward pack, which is kind of hard to defend against. But then swinging it out and then there goes Sia. I mean, that just proves there's a lot of vision coming in, and I don't even think we've reached the pinnacle of the ideas that Tony Brown's throwing in.
Yeah, well, of course, if we're going off non-hookers throwing in lineouts being the best player in the world, Josh van der Fleer has a thing or two to say about that when he did it up at Murrayfield. But it's good innovation. They didn't actually get over from the maul, which was kind of surprising. I thought that they would, obviously, having that advantage of having all the forwards on the pitch, not on the pitch, in the maul
Yeah,
straight away.
yeah.
But they did barrow over eventually. Now, that was also a critical part of the game. I'm pretty sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's the part where Cody Taylor went off with a HIA. Obviously, he returned to the pitch. But I thought Cody Taylor was amazing on Saturday. He was probably the New Zealand's best performance. He'd really, really kind of rolled back to 2 or 3 years ago when he was probably the best hooker in the world. He was amazing.
I mean, he was a real thorn in the side, especially while listening to the commentators going, "Oh, Taylor, 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 Taylor," and it did really like make me concerned the way he was playing as a supporter. But I mean, it was phenomenal how we defended him and made sure he wasn't able to cause too much of a headache. Though the other thing that was really surprising, which is now the second week in a row, is South Africa stopped Will Jordan. Jordan
Yeah.
wasn't even able to cross the line as well, which is kind of surprising. And the whole discussion is what would have happened if Caleb Clark had played, but the typical thing with Caleb Clark is he'll play 1 or 2 games and then end up being injured, and now he's on the injury list again.
Yeah, well, of course, now Will Jordan, having not scored for 2 games, is going to take out his anger on Australia, uh, and probably score 2 hat-tricks in a row. Um, but a great area that New Zealand really heckled South Africa in was the turnovers. They made 6 or 7. They isolated South Africans. They done the old strategy of kind of letting them take an extra step or forward, and got someone over the ball. I know Scott Barrett made 2 turnovers. I know Cody Taylor made one. A couple of the All Black forwards just seemed to get in there at the right moment and just hold on for long enough where Matthew Carty flew for penalties. I think that South Africa will need to improve on that because Argentina most certainly have a back row capable in terms of Matera, Kramer, and Gonzalez of causing that havoc.
I mean, looking at the team that's going over there, the team that's going there right now is definitely a very physical and dominant team that's going there. Um, I heard someone talk about the disrespect of the Springboks, and they said this is definitely not a team that is showing disrespect towards the Argentines. This is actually showing the Argentinians that we are now actually stepping up to the physicality of the game. And their view was if you looked at the disrespect, you could probably say that was against Wales and Portugal. Those were probably the 2 teams that were showing almost like a disrespect in the fact that they weren't playing the top players at that moment. They were playing, letting people run off and get their debuts.
Yeah, well, I think that obviously we'll get on to the Argentina game in a few minutes, but they've obviously looked at what Argentina done against Australia. you know, if you're sending over a second team when Argentina are going to be almost like a 9-year-old in a sugar high after that performance, it can go very wrong. Now, Argentina are extremely up and down. It's hard to dictate them. And I'd say the other issue is South Africa want this one this weekend, so that the second test against Argentina can be an experiment. They the title one that they can play these fringe players who haven't played. But yeah, they've sent over the heavy cap. They've let a couple of names home. I know Detroit hasn't travelled and Benambi hasn't gone over there, but you know they've still put most of the heavy artillery over there. They're aware of what Argentina are capable of, and clearly they see them as some sort of a threat.
I mean, the thing is with a team like Argentina, it's almost like the old Samoa and Tongan players. They might not be technically there, but the game that they bring is a physical game. And that's when you end up having players getting injured and everything like this. It's not because of the fancy steps, it's because these guys come in and they expect to hit you through a wall. That's going to be the whole thing that's going to happen. And it's kind of the way we also play against the All Blacks. It was a game that if you make that tackle, you had to make that tackle. It wasn't like oh, okay, cool, I'll hold you and delay you. No, it was a case of need a hit and go down. I can't remember the last time I actually heard a maul being called off a tackle against South Africa, because a lot of it, I think the last one was Etzebeth with James Lowe in the World Cup. And that was, I'm not saying it wasn't bad technique. I just think it was a bit lucky, the fact that the way people joined on so quickly that allowed it to be called a maul. You don't really get that now these days, because the law is as soon as your knee touches the ground, that is a tackle. And a lot of players are getting their knees down quickly to allow that ruck to be made, which is something that needs to be looked at from a point with certain players, especially the younger ones who try to go that extra mile and everything like that, and end up failing and getting turned over because they literally get themselves the extra meter, but then they're out of support.
Yeah, well, I think the All Black defense was certainly positive for them this weekend, especially compared to last weekend. Although it did crack again for a second time. Malcolm Marks went over late in the middle of the second half off the back of a maul. He splintered off, ran into the corner. There was only, I think it was Paranara was the only person in the corner, and he just kind of
No, Sierra Reese.
Oh, Severy, sorry, was the only person in the corner, and he was able to fend him off and get over.
Though watching the replay, you kind of see Severis drop his attention on Marks, and I think looked at the ref or something like that, and Marks took that opportunity because then he wasn't in the right position or the right mind frame to be tackling, because of course he wasn't watching the ball, was watching something else. And he took that opportunity, and congrats to him getting to 100 points in international rugby. That was his 20th try. Equaled with John Smith, so he needs to score one more to become the most. I think he needs to be one more to become the most points scored by a forward for South Africa.
But yeah, it was a great day for Malcolm Marks. He came on, he showed his impact. He's been rewarded. I assume he's going to start against Argentina. Well, you don't know. We'll get onto that when we go into our kind of predictions for that game. But again, the back forward pack was good. They probably didn't assert the scrum dominance they wanted. They certainly didn't barrel the All Blacks back at every opportunity. The All Blacks stood up well to the physicality. As I said last week, they got a bit tired with the altitude. It didn't this week. It was at sea level. It was at Cape Town. But what ended up running them out was the fact that they had to chase the game in the last 20 minutes, in the last 15 minutes compared to last week. I think if you'd done a roles reverse, I think the All Blacks, where the All Blacks were 14, 15 points up this week, I think they'd have won the game. But it was because they had to chase the game. They couldn't get into that box 22. They couldn't threaten it, especially in that last passage. You know, they won a silly penalty. They didn't get far enough. They didn't really. And then they lost the line out, and that ended up being the game.
I mean, 6 points in the end. Like I said, it's going to come down to one try that's going to separate them. it was definitely that whole thing. I mean, it's now you're hearing about the new touring ideas that are going to come for 2026, 2028, and 2030, where there won't be championship. It'll be a good old-fashioned touring tournament that will happen, meaning Argentina will come to us, or New Zealand, or us to them, or whatever, and probably a minnow team to fill in to make sure that we kind of uplift the tier two, but at the same time have that physicality of that rugby, which might help the All Blacks with their whole thing, that whole discussion that they're still missing us from Super Rugby, and that they might just change the whole thing and become a lot more physical and work on their game. But I mean, I was looking at it after this game. Rays is sitting at a 57.1% win ratio. And I mean, yeah, that's not great. But I mean, the next one closest is France with a 55% win ratio. It looks good when you look at it from that point, but when you look at it from a New Zealand point, it's 76 to 57. It's not that great. But you have to give the guy some time to build. You can't just knock him down now. There's definitely some great visions that he has for the team, but what is happening with the team? The fact that now he's losing DMAC at the end of this to go up to Darragh. He's trying to push to get the South African mentality of rugby in New Zealand into New Zealand, where the players can go overseas, but they're still eligible to play for the All Blacks. So we'll have to see how that goes. That argument, they might open it up because they might be like, listen, you're right. But we have to see.
I think that the issue is you have to look at the context of the games. I think that his first 8 games now, it is yet to be concluded with the two. This would include 2 Wallabies tests that they have to play. So take this with a pinch of salt. He has a slightly better result than what Foster had in his first batch of games. This is his first 6 games now. Because
7.
Foster had, sorry, his first 7. Foster had lost 3 and drew 1. He drawn to the Wallabies, and he'd lost out. But I think I was talking to someone from New Zealand there the other day. They can accept losing to South Africa away. Obviously, the world number one, the world champions. They're going through a really good period at the moment. They're strong. They're very hard to beat. It's that Argentina game that stings New Zealand. It's that one in Wellington. That's the one that's still stinging. That's the one that kind of hurts. Conceding 38 points. I think a lot of All Blacks can accept losing to South Africa away, especially when it's the world champions, especially in their world number one, and they're just on a high point right now. But it's that Argentina game that kind of lingers and is kind of hurting that win ratio, and it's just kind of. It was almost like a stab in the shoulder blades, that game. Like nobody expected them to lose. It must have really hurt. It still does.
I mean, yes, but I mean, the thing is, you incorporated Argentina into the rugby championship. You incorporated the Jaguares into Super Rugby when they were still playing before COVID. You need to expect a team like that is going to improve, because now they're playing a very dominant side type of rugby. They're playing against the physicality of South Africa and the All Blacks. They're playing against the likes of Australia and everything. What's going to happen? There's only one way for the team, is going up. So they were the whipping boys in the beginning. Then they were in the 3rd and 4th place playoffs with us, and then now Australia. And now they're actually like putting up their hands. They're like, no, we are ready. We are now, this is now paying off for us. So the performance is, you can't go, oh, we lost to Argentina. What the hell? I mean, prior to the rugby championship with Argentina, South Africa had never lost to Argentina. As soon as they came in, I was like, I'd hate to be the coach to lose to Argentina, which was Henneke Meyer. I mean, that's one mark on his record. He was the first South African coach to lose to Argentina, which, when you look at it, was bound to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's we're going to continue the Argentina praise. And we're going to move on to that game, mental game in the flat out. In as a neutral, someone completely neutral standpoint, one of the best displays of rugby I've ever watched by an individual team. Australia, 20 points to 3 up after half an hour. I would say probably the best rugby Australia have played in about 2 years in that first half, or the first 30. Argentina didn't bring it up one gear, two gears. They went from gear one to about gear 15.
Nos.
Put on the jet shoes, started scoring tries from anywhere, anyone scoring them. It was insane. It was just mental. It's mental to recap it.
It was. I mean, I still remember going, "Oh, is this now Australia turning around and everything?" And then all of a sudden, Argentina started coming back, and I was like, I sat there thinking, like, what the hell's up with Australia? Because Australia almost gets to that point, and they think, "Oh, okay, cool, we are cruising altitude. That's fine," not realizing there's a lot more above them. And I don't know if it's just they get to a point and it just looks like they switch off. Like everything's off. And I mean, you're getting the youngsters like Jorgensen right now. He's putting up his hand, and that guy was fighting the whole game, trying to get through. And it just seemed like his team just, like, whatever, you go, you young, you go do your thing. We're all gonna go over here. And I mean, again, Valentini again. It was the same expression that he had against South Africa, where he just looked like he was off. He it looked like his brain was asleep, and he was just in some sort of you know just automatic playing style, and it just looked like all of them just went into that style where I'm like, guys, you're trying to do pride, you're trying to build up for the um what do you call it, the Lions tour. You're hosting the next World Cup. You need to give something for your people to be excited about. I mean, after that game, Ben Youngs turned around and said, "You know what? We might as well cancel that tour and go to South Africa, because they're at least pitching up to the games."
Yeah, well, I was watching the game at home, obviously, and I was then talking to this Argentinian person that I know in Ireland. The decibel, like the first try that Argentina scored, which is a beauty, by the way. I think it was Albornoz kicked it up into the air. Matera caught it, held off 3 Australians, just offloaded to Carreras, who sent, I think it was Jorgensen actually, sent him to the shots, went over. You could just hear it go from that up there. You could just hear the decibels rise. They fed off that. And then the next kickoff, Argentina win the ball back, play a good few phases, get a line out, and then Montoya attacks it from 5 meters out and scores. And
No,
they go again. Matera should have scored before half time. They go again, they're 3 points behind at half time. And then, second half is just.
yeah, second. I mean, I think it was Shane Warne. I mean, even though it's a different sport, he used to say when he was playing at home and he heard the cheerings, that was fine. But when he was overseas and he heard the booings, he almost had to get into that mindset of, this is a celebration. I'm doing my job right. When you're hearing the crowd cheering, you need to be like, okay, cool. Get them to either switch off or get that to hype yourself up. It's almost like they're missing a hype man in the team to say, like, come, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Whether that's one of the youngsters and everything like that, that's, yeah, I mean, it was probably Nick White's previously, but the whole issue that refs are having with scrum halves at the moment, by telling them to keep quiet. I mean, like, TJ was told to chill this weekend as well. It just seems like there's no hype, man. You almost need like a Villy who comes in from the back and screams at the forwards for the slightest win in the team, which is what they're missing. They almost need that, someone to like get them riled up and excited. Like when they are cheering, go like, no, now it's time for them to cheer for us. And when it's a boo, then it's like, no, but that means you doing the job right. You did the right thing. But I don't know. That's probably something Joe Smith has to look at, is dedicating a hype man in the team, and who that is, I don't know. Do you want it as one of your youngsters? Do you want it one of the senior players? I mean, Slipper came on, equaling now George Gregan and he looked like he wasn't even at the game. That it was just penalty after penalty from him, which is not what you really want from someone senior like that. Whereas if it was a South African who was a senior with that kind of level, you would have seen a different level of scrums.
Well, I thought that a lot of Australians prematurely blaming the fact that Angus Bell and Tupou went off was unfair because Argentina started to gain the momentum in scrum at the end of the first half. And at second half, every time it was a scrum, no matter whose scrum it was, bar the one scrum penalty which led to the McDermott try, it was penalty after penalty. The Argentinians just kept milking it out of them. That's what can happen in Argentina. They're extremely physical. But what they showed on Saturday as well is what they had in 2015. They have the twinkle shoes, kind of. They have the backs that can destroy you. And they destroyed Australia. Wang
Yeah, I
Cruz
mean,
Talia, Chocobares, Albornoz, who only his second test was fantastic, by the way. They looked a lot better with a natural 10 at 10 instead of Carreras. The other Carreras, Mateo, they ran riot.
I mean, it was great seeing the Argentinians literally put up their hand like, this is my position. There, I'm here. This is where I'm going to be. Nothing's going to get past me. Switch off when they were behind and everything, like they're giving away penalties in the beginning. They were like, boom. But the thing is, with Argentina, physical, the next thing you know, you're gonna have for the next game against South Africa, you're gonna have a Itzebeth or a Visa or someone who's not gonna back down from the physical approach. They're literally gonna step up to a Lavanini or a Matera and be like, or Kremer even himself, and be like, you know what? No, sit down, son. Let's show you how it's going to be. Where the Australians didn't do that. They seemed to have that hype, and then it was just like, you know, I'm done. Like
Yeah,
it almost seems like they finished.
what I thought is Australia lacked a leader. They lacked someone like Julian Montoya or Kremer or a Matera. Like you saw, obviously, a few years ago, the clip went viral of Montoya when he was going to Jamie Ritchie saying about Duan van der Merwe, do you want me to speak Afrikaans to him? And then laughing in his face, saying, after Ritchie
And he
said, set an
said,
example, mate, and then Montoya said to him, really good example from you, eh? When Ritchie got a yellow. They need someone like that. They need someone that's just going to wind people up and kind of get in fellas' heads. Montoya is the master of it. He's one of the best in the world. That just you hear him all the
uh,
time, just in
I,
someone's ear. They need someone like that.
well, basically, if you listen to that whole thing, he basically says an Afrikaans version of the C word in that whole thing. It says, yeah, don't be a C word, but in the South African context. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where the hell did this guy come from? Like, he's like, oh, you want me to speak Afrikaans? I'll speak
You want me to
Afrikaans.
speak
Jeez.
Afrikaans, Swim? You want me to speak Afrikaans, Swim?
But you need someone like that. I mean, this is where South Africa is so great. They have that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah,
even if it's not Sia doing it, it's another play. You have a Villy who's like, yeah. You have a Fuff. You have a Grant Williams is also he's not as like flamboyant about it, but he's also doing it.
yeah.
The
Another
thing.
example is Mali actually done a turn again. So something similar. I don't know if you saw it, but when Australia got the yellow at the end of the game, I don't know if many people saw it. Mali actually tapped their man off the pitch. He started doing this, and then he went up to the rest and not the penalty try. Is it not the penalty try? And then he just started clapping your man off the pitch. That's the type of thing Australia don't have. They don't have somebody who's just going to rile someone up and get in people's heads and just stubbornly just kind of push people away and annoy people. That's what they need. They need someone like that, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not going to see Lavanini do that against South Africa because he knows Etzebeth's going to sit him down. Um,
Montoya will
but
do it
yeah,
against anyone.
Montoya would do it against anyone, but I don't think so. But you might just hear a few of those lovely words coming from Montoya with Afrikaans flair at him.
You got the
But
dictionary
yeah,
out for the week anyway. All the bad
I
words.
think he needs to go. I think he needs to go say it to Tom Curry and see what he does.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know if
she's
you
just
remember
can't.
that incident during the World Cup where,
I do,
um,
yeah.
yeah. So if anybody who doesn't realize what happened is during the World Cup, Bongi turned around and said "Wit cunt," which stands for white side, which is one of the sides that they use. And Tom Curry went to the ref and said, "I called me a white C."
But to be fair, I do understand Curry's point of view. Obviously, if you don't speak Afrikaans, that you can be confused. That's a completely different argument. But at the end of the day, I see people blaming Joe Schmidt, and I've been talking to a lot of Australians and saying, look, that's an anomaly. That happens once. If it happens again, fair enough. Do what you want with him.
But when was the
Uh,
last time you saw Australia sitting with 3 losses in the championship? I mean,
but
they
this
always
this
beat
isn't the
in South Africa
Australia side of
once.
10 years ago. This is the problem. It's not. They're expecting the Australian side 20 years. They don't have the players for it. They don't have the players
Th-
for it.
that- this is the whole thing that everybody's now looking at South Africa for, because South Africa is coming and they're saying, all right, cool. Here's our senior players. Awesome. Here comes a Grobler, a Stenenkamp, a Sasha, a uh whoever, a Moody, Edwall, everything like that. They're letting them walk through the door. So when they go, okay, cool, it's time for you to sit down and go join the commentary team, the guys are in there and they're not like, oh, okay, now what do I do? And the guy who's just in the team is like, I've only just cemented my position, bro. Like, you do you, not me. Don't follow me. You, there's no natural leader. Where I mean, Sasha through the setups has actually been captain a few times. I think I heard John de Villiers says he's not the captain now that South Africa needs, but he's probably a captain in the future, especially with the pedigree of play that he can be and everything like that, which is a good. I mean, I don't have a problem with Sasha. I mean, he did pretty well in the under-20 championship when I saw him against England and Georgia, were the 2 games I watched him play. And I mean, as a captain there, he was like level and everything like that. So yeah, but that's the thing is South Africa has these hype men that play. Let it be hyping the guys up by physically shaking them, or like a Lukanya going, here we go, a nice little, give you a little backward pass. All of a sudden,
Yeah, well, I think
you don't.
the other part of the problem for Australia, and I see with the problem with blaming Schmidt is I obviously remember Ireland before Schmidt, and it was kind of, eh. We won the Grand Slam 2009, but by 2013 we lost to Italy and finished fifth. Schmidt came in, he won us a Grand Slam and he won us 2 other Six Nations titles. What I'm saying is the man knows how to change a team. He brought through this new generation of Ireland players. I'd argue we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for him. I think they need to give him time. He's had what, 7 tests? He's won 4 of them. He's still won 4 of them. At the end of the day,
Yeah,
they haven't. Okay, that was an embarrassment against Argentina. You could nearly scrap that game off. They beat Argentina, who are a better team than them. They showed that on Saturday. I think Argentina beat Australia 90 times out of 100. They beat Wales twice. It's a series that they had to win for morale, and they beat Georgia when they had 14 men, and that's a game that could be particularly sticky for them. I think they need to stick with Schmidt. Now, on the other side of it, Argentina getting Contepomi seems to be a huge coup for them. They took a massive scalp. They scored the most points out of anyone ever as an away side, New Zealand, and now they've gone and put the heaviest defeat on Australia ever. Obviously, I think this championship's out of reach. They're not going to beat South Africa twice with bonus points and beat them, win the competition. Next year, it's possible. I think
but I
if
mean,
they keep their men, they keep the right people in job, they have a chance.
here's something we need to look at right now is the pressures both on Razor and Schmidt at the same time. They are going into a do or die scenario right now. Uh, this isn't going to be a cakewalk for either side. There's one game in New Zealand, there's one game in Australia. It's going to be a it's going to be ugly because the The tempers are going to be flaring. The passion's going to be leaking. New Zealand's going to want retribution for their bad start. Australia is going to want some retribution for how the fact that they're walking around with the wooden spoon right now. We're going to have to see what happens. It's going to be a battle of the ages. That is going to be a game that I'd even if it was at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up and watch, because it's two coaches, both under the knife, both under a microscope, at the point that both unions are going to have to go, like, do we stick with them and let them grow and have a plan for the World Cup, or do we drop them? And the thing that's going to save Smith right now is the fact of the Lions tour, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that to talk about that game and kind of give a bit of insight into the games that aren't this weekend. I'm pretty sure is it next weekend they're on, or are they on this weekend? I think they're next weekend.
Yeah, next week. Yeah, next. So
They're
there's a
next
break
weekend.
this week. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the final two. To give perspective, we'll talk about New Zealand and Australia first, because that's kind of the bigger game in terms of, as you said, both coaches are a bit under the microscope. First test in Australia. That's the pivotal one. I think no Australian will complain if they lose in New Zealand. They'll be fine with that.
Yeah.
They need to beat New Zealand. I think if they'd beaten Argentina last weekend, they could lose these two tests. They need to beat New Zealand in Sydney.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
end
what I
of the
said.
story.
It's going to be, it's going to be a knife edge of the game. Whether your side, the thing is, if you lose by 1 or 2 points, you could probably get away with it. But if you lose badly, the media is going to literally crucify you. You might as well go find the nearest hole.
And that New Zealand side can do exactly what Argentina done to them. And that is the scary thing for Australia, is that if they switch off, if they have the second half like they did on Saturday, they can get absolutely obliterated again. They can't switch off. Not against New Zealand. You can say what you want. Some people are saying this New Zealand side has lost its fear. They can put the fear of God right back into you. They have the players to do it, especially in that back line. So Australia, as maybe if they lose within a try, maybe it's acceptable. If they get beaten by 40 or 50 points again, where do you go from there? And I mean, it's the same. It's the same in New Zealand. I'd say probably stretch it out to within 2 tries in New Zealand. But if they get another 30, 40 point hammering, it's very hard to see where they come back from. I think you're right. I think there'll be blood, there'll be guts. It'll be an old Slide test that we haven't seen in 10 years of guts and physicality and both sides being able to beat each other and going out for it.
I mean, the last time there was a game like this with the Bledisloe Cup was there was that whole incident where Bernard Foley was the first player to get called for time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, the ref did give fair warning. He even stopped time and said, "Listen, I'm going to start time, and then you kick." And he blew and he said, "Play, and then you blew." He said, "No." I mean, Nick White was like, "Yeah, but you lost it." No, you lost the thing because you didn't tell him to kick straight away. You are wasting time. So sorry for you. And if they had kicked that at that point, it could have been a different game and Australia could have actually won. But they wasted time, and Bernard Foley was the first player that I saw get blown up for time. But now, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a game and a half. I think this is the week where they're probably putting in more work than they ever before. I don't know what the weather's like there at the moment, but I mean, right now they're going to have to look at it. I mean, the one thing the All Blacks are going to have to look at, which they could probably experiment with right now, is depth in positions. Because I mean, like, if you look at the lock position, it was always Brodie Retallick and Sam Whitelock, and then Scott Barrett when he first came into the scene as well. There was the three of them rotating. But the problem is now they don't really have the depth in that position. They have the two locks that they have at the moment, but there's no like depth going there. Blackadder's now off injured. I don't know if he'll be back in time. Again, a great player that they've lost. I've heard someone say that they should look at a bomb squad of their own and put Artie Severe on the bench, or maybe move Artie to 6 or something like that, and Scott into 7, the same way as the South Africans have done now with Peter Steff. But is it their style of gameplay that's going to work? Don't know. I'm going to be very interested to see how the teams line up. Are we going to see the likes of a bomb squad from Argentina against South Africa, who are the creators of the bomb squad, or are we going to see a 5-3 split, or are we going to see another 7-1 split from South Africa? I see players that can make that 7-1 split, so you definitely know, looking at that touring side, there's not going to be, but there could be a 6-2 split. So
I think that definitely South Africa will employ 6-2. I don't think they have. I think it would be foolish to employ 7-1 against Argentina, because they're more than capable of hurting a back, intentionally or unintentionally. You can debate that, but
yeah,
they could. Argentina definitely are a side that have fellas capable of intentionally pursuing backs to injure them and then really putting that in doubt. I think they'll go with a 6-2. Merely because a 5-3, if they're going to go 6-2 against anyone, you go against someone like Argentina in Argentina, where they're going to be extremely physical, and they're going to try and power you over, and they're going to try and kind of keep the ball through brute means and win the ball through brute means with their turnover threats. I think South Africa will go 6-2. Hard to say for Argentina. Obviously, they don't have the same depth. They have good depth. I don't say that they haven't, but they haven't the depth of a South Africa or an Ireland or a France. So I think that their kind of solution has always been 5-3. I think that what Argentina needs to do is they need to start out Albornoz. I really liked him against Australia. Now it's obviously hard to dictate Australia when you give up, but he dictated the game. He kicked all his kicks. He kicked really well. I think they showed they were a lot better, a lot stronger for not having someone like Carreras at 10, who's a fullback naturally with Gloucester. And I think that they'd want to keep that up. I think they need to get their backs on the ball. They need to get the likes of Chocobaras on the ball and Malia on the ball, because those boys showed that they can kill people. They can really, cause absolute havoc. With South Africa, I think that, they'll try and keep it tight. They'll try and keep it up front. They'll kick their kicks when they get them. And they're not going to, South Africa don't need to win this game by 50. They need to win it by 1. That's I think the strategy they'll employ. They'll try and win this game. No matter what it's by or how they win it, they'll just try and win it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we literally just need 2 points to walk away with it, and that's 2 losing points. We walk away with 2 losing points, it's over. There's no ways.
Or if you get 1 and Argentina don't get 2 bonus points, that's it as well.
Yeah. Well, if it's a win, it's over. Either way, even if they get bonus points, we just kick it. Don't forget, here in the Southern Hemisphere tournament, you have to score 3 more tries than your opposition to get a bonus point.
Makes it exceedingly harder for Argentina to kind of claim that 10 points, 9 points that they need to win the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, for them to actually win it, they actually need 10 to properly win it. And I mean, that's without letting South Africa get a single point. I could be wrong, but that ties up the top of the thing.
No, I think you're 18. I think you're 18 and they're 10. I think that's what it is. I think you have 18 and they have 10. So I think that if they were to win 1 game with a bonus and then not just win the other, and you were to get nothing, that they'd win it. Obviously, it's a bit of a far-fetched idea, but just to kind of say that's how the mathematics side of it is.
Yeah, I think that's why I say we just definitely need 2 points to definitely just cement it properly.
Yeah.
Rather than just leave it down to points and games and all that kind of stuff. Just straightforward. I mean, the thing that will work in our favor is we got more wins away than they do. But yeah, I can't wait for next weekend. It's going to be a hectic day for me that day because it's also my daughter's birthday party that day. So yeah,
Happy early
um,
birthday to your daughter.
yeah. So next week Thursday is in fact the birthday. So yeah, it always comes down to do or
A
die
few
on your
brides will
birthday.
be lit. A few brides will be lit, I'm sure, in your household.
No, it's going to be at the ice rink. It's going to be cold.
Sure. You could just come to Limerick. It's always freezing up here anyway.
My wife would love to move up there right now. But yeah,
One
it's
day with
gonna.
the weather here, and you'll be trying to go back to the Cape. I'm telling you, I'm not joking. You.
As I said to my wife, no matter where we move, as long as I get to watch rugby live, I'm happy.
Exactly. Say only 1 hour difference in the time zone as well. Donate to the
Yeah,
GoFundMe, Kirby to Limerick.
there you go. I'll come hold the sign. But yeah, yeah. But I mean, I mean, we could talk for hours on the games and stuff like this. I think we need to cut it short today.
The podcast here. I'd like to thank Kirby as usual with his sometimes insightful knowledge about rugby and South Africa. Uh, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining me, Kirby.
It's a pleasure, Darragh. It's always a great speaking to you every Thursday. It's the highlight of the week right now. So yeah. But yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and click the bell if you want to get notifications for when we put up new content, which is at least once a week. Next week will be the predictions and probably also the start of talking about the URC. Because
Yes.
the URC kicks off next
Next Saturday,
weekend.
next Friday. Yeah, next Friday night. I think is the first game.
Yeah, and I see the South African teams are postponing it due to the US the championship right now. So yeah, but yes, thanks very much, people. Chat later. See you.
See you, boys.